All right, all right. Welcome to the Frapping Books Book Club. It has been a while, so bear with me as I get through this. This is chapter 5, already chapter 5. We're doing Octavia Butler's The Parable of the Talents. As you know, before we did Octavia Butler's The Parable of the Sower. It was very good. It's sci-fi for people looking for something a little bit different. Really excited about that. So, as we allow a couple other people to trickle in here, just want to tell you something about the book club. We have chosen the rest of our books for this year. Bear with us, it may be some strong language, but we're doing it under the guise of learning, or at least that's the hope here. And what I want to start off with I guess I can give you a brief synopsis. Not really sure how that goes, but yeah. So Octavia Butler, of course, we talked last time a little bit of history about her starting writing at a very young age. She's in a movie theater with her aunt, and decides after the movie that "Ah, I could have done that." And so she sets out to do what most obsessed, driven people do, and she just starts to write all day, every day. That's all she does. She just writes, writes, and writes. And she wins a bunch of awards, of course, and these are two of my favorite books, the Earthseed series, as she says it in the book. But let's see. Hello, hello. Thanks for joining. The Earthseed book, as she describes it. Well, let me see if I can't. A page. I'm still doing sharing, people. Just pull on in, relax, take your time, and we'll get started here momentarily. Again, we're talking The Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler. And there we go. Got one more share bell with me. Come on in. Again, we're talking Octavia Butler's Parable of the Talents. All right. And as always, if you guys did get a chance to read the book, I know I did not do well enough to promote and get things out there. That's on me. I apologize. So hopefully you guys read the book and it's still fresh in your minds. Oh, what's up, Paco? Man, thanks for letting me know. Says my camera's frozen. Is my camera frozen to anybody else? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Left to right, bobbing back and forth. Okay. Appreciate it, Paco. So as usual, if people want to join in the conversation, we're talking The Parable of the Talents by Octavia E. Butler. Brilliant sci-fi writer, or author, I should say. It sounds more legit, right? So I'm going to give a brief synopsis. But if anybody did actually read the book and wants to join us, go ahead and click that link that you see there. Hey, got a couple of YouTubers out there. Hello, hello, hello. You can do the same thing. Click the link, follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Get that house clean out the way so we can just have this conversation. So, Octavia Butler's Parable of the Talents. Wonderful book. We left it last time. We left it last time. Um, she and her, the person that she was traveling with and got romantically involved with, being Coley, and some other escapees from their original like parish. They build this town, they name it Acorn, they've been through a lot, they pull it together. I mean, if you want to think about it like Walking Dead, these people have built a little community. They have built a community. They know how to plant seeds and crops, trees. They got a little bit of livestock, I believe, a couple of chickens. They got vehicles now, all manner of weaponry, and it seems to be, on the uptick. Now, Ben Coley is begging her to go with him to another town, and at this point, she is refusing to go because Acorn. This is what I built. Earthseed. This is us. You know, all her religion, her new religion that, as we talked about last time, I feel is just kind of biting off of the Christian experience there, but you know, new religion. Um, so we pick it up with in the next book. So the first book has been narrated by our heroine here, Lauren, and in this one, it's a really strange twist. Spoiler alert: she's dead, and it's her daughter who's doing most of the narrating this time. Let's let that just soak in. So it's her daughter doing most of the narrating. So it's from her point of view by a mystery person's point of view. I don't want to spoil it just yet. And then of course Ben Cole, I guess have left behind some writings, and he's doing the same thing. So it's Ben Cole's point of view, is Lauren's point of view from all of her writings. We all know that she's an avid writer, much like the author herself, Octavia Butler. And then it's Lauren's point of view, and then it's other person's point of view. We won't get into that person just yet. So they're at a good place. I mean, how many of us have been at a good place where we built a lot of things, we worked hard, and we seem to have got things accomplished. We're right at the precipice of being able to just take a breath, and lo and behold, that's when it happens, right? That's when you're prepared or you're tested on how well you prepared yourself, and that could be any manner of thing, right? And we're gonna be doing some reading from here. Got a couple of bookmark spots for you. Trying to class to join up a little bit. Um, yeah, so they're at a good place. Ben Coley still is worried because, he's lived this life before. He's older, significantly older than Lauren. Um, and with that, I think comes with a bit of wisdom. He's been in one place where it felt secure, felt like he was getting things done. He had a job, he's a doctor, but he still had this feeling of like, hey man, there's a more secure location. And I think the idea for him is, hey, just keep moving around because there's no such thing as a secure place. So, um, of course, they eventually have a daughter, and it becomes more incumbent upon Ben Coley to get her out of this place. We have a president who's I'm not kidding y'all. In this book, it literally says this president wants to make America great again. Now, this second book was written around 98. And what a lot of people don't realize is that another more current president kind of took that slogan from a more famous president, which is Ronald Reagan. I don't know if I can call him more famous or infamous at this point. But yeah, so Ronald Reagan kind of used that slogan, "Make America Great Again." So that could have been where it come from, but it is a little bit spooky that it's coming from, after this presidency. That's the slogan that her novel or her sci-fi book is set in the distant future, even from now. So Ben Coley wants to move. Lauren doesn't. She wants to continue to build. Ben Coley is worried because this current president has gotten this thing going where he wants to basically take control by blaming otherizing anybody who's not only a Christian but his type of Christian. So he's marking people as sinners and evils, and of course there's LGBTQ plus community, that's black and brown, that's poor whites and others. So it's really telling that even way back then she can write about some things that I'm sure a lot of us feel like may be going on right now. So she wants to stay there. Ben Coley's worried that she's making this huge target for herself because as he's rounding up people who aren't his version of Christian, she is set. I mean, she's very open about being having a new religion. So that goes on for a while, and you hear her daughter, who is older, narrating, kind of talking about this time period. And so they have the journals and, of course, the Earthseed book, which is basically Lauren's version of the Bible. And, she's talking about how that's when disaster happens. There's this extremist group that's supposed to be, Jared's group, the President Jared's group, and they go in and they burn a bunch of stuff and anything that they deem unholy, they burn and get rid of. So they break open the camp, they enslave Acorn, our beloved Acorn. Of course, the tactics are pretty straightforward. They have um, the men and women separated, and then they take the children because the heathen children need good Christian homes, so they are replacing or rehousing the children um, to make sure they are indoctrinated with the Jared's version of Christianity, and of course that includes Lauren's daughter. And so all she does is talk about trying to figure out how can I just get the kids back. And she talks to them very candidly. She tells the women like, "You're going to be raped, but if we can just grit and bear it and get through it, and while they're raping us, try to pay attention to every detail around us, we will find a way to get out of this, to get to our men and get them out of this, and to escape and find and locate the children." And these slave collars are something nasty. I mean, it's futuristic, of course. You wear the collar, and they have controls that make you. They can give you pain, and she notes in one of the passages that it also can give pleasure, which is a very very. If anybody saw, if anybody's read like the I think it's Ice Pick. It's a pimp story. You gotta check it out. But kind of the pimps. He had a younger pimp going to a more veteran pimp, asking him, "How do you keep your chicks in line?" And he says, "What you do? You take a wire coat hanger and you warm it up, and then you whip her back with it. Really good. And then you run her bath." And you take care of her and tell her it's gonna be okay. Don't make me do that. That sort of thing. It's a very strong, abusive tactic. And that's kind of what they do with the collars. They press a button to make you feel pain, and then if you do something that they want you to, they give you a little jolt of pleasure. So that's just very Pavlovian. So they have these collars on. One lady dies because she dives out the window, and it just keeps shocking her. And none of the guards do anything because they don't have to, but it shocks her till I guess she has a heart attack and dies. Um, so that kind of gets everybody in line. Lauren and the Acorn group are forced to bury the dead, which includes her husband, Ben Coley. And that's when she tries to kill one of the guards, and she's jolted. And remember, she's an empath, which means she actually feels what other people feel, whether it's pain or pleasure. And I mean, there's a really gruesome part in here where it talks about, Lauren. It takes a while, but then she's finally raped. And she talks about just that struggle of being an empath and being raped and feeling disgusting and terrible about feeling good about being raped, because she's watching her, she's hearing, feeling, and watching her rapist. And because she's an empath, she's sharing in his joy while being just, sexually tortured. I mean, it's a really strong, it's a really strong take, right? I mean, that's rough. So they do find a way. They break out. They kill some guards. They decide to split up a little bit, try to find out as much information as possible. Um, there is a part before that where she is looking for. There's a newer person who comes in, and she's looking for that person's sisters, and they don't find it. So they're looking at slave traders and all of that, slavers, and when they are unsuccessful finding the slave, you know the newcomer's sibling, she does notice that it's her brother is a part of that slave group, and she actually buys her brother's freedom and takes him in. And of course, her husband is still alive at the time, and they fix him up, and it turns out to be her brother Marcus. Now, Marcus, if you remember, she was told by close friend now, not so much then, but she was told that her family was abused, shot, and then thrown into the fire, so they're for sure dead. When she asked Marcus about it, he basically tells her like, "Yeah, I was, beat, I was shot, I was thrown on the fire, but because of how hard they threw me, his body sort of hits the top of the pyre and rolls off. He just plays dead until everything seems to be calming down." So that's Marcus's journey. Now remember, Lauren and Marcus, their father was a Baptist minister, and so he's having some issues with her newfound religion, one right, a religion that she started herself, um, that separates itself from his and his father's and his family's religion, which was Baptist, Christian. And so, oh man, this I'm telling you, this book is so good. I probably don't have enough time to really talk about it like I would like to. But he ends up leaving because one, he wants to strike out on his own, be a man. He's around that age. He's a tall, good-looking dude. It's the homosexual struggle, which they believe that he's gay, but because of his religious beliefs, he has to kind of suppress it. So it's a huge thing in the story where he never marries or never dates because he just decides the thing that I want most is deemed evil by my religion. So this is it. I'm just gonna be single. I'm gonna put my head down and you know really work this Christian aspect. So they separate. And that's the fourth person's point of view that we get too. We get some of his point of view. So yeah, before we get started with that, so everyone kind of splits up, and Lauren decides I've been beaten, abused. I've had two homes taken away from me. So what's a person to do after that? They've had two homes taken, and so she just decides to put everything she has into spreading her religion, Earthseed, and finding her daughter. And I mean, it's really tragic. So she's on this journey, and she does spread her religion. She happens to get a few rich and powerful people involved, um, and so that spreads the word. The president doesn't get reelected, and his kind of crazy ideal, his crazy ideas kind of fall by the wayside, but hers kind of stay strong. They kind of hang on there. And so what ends up happening is that as she's seeking for her daughter, she runs into Marcus, who is now climbing the hierarchy of the church. And she tells her brother, I mean, she of course dresses up and sneaks in there, and she's trying to tell her brother about all the evil things that that faction is doing. What happened at Acorn, the rape, the murder, and these supposed to be good, God fearing Christian men. Some of those guards that attacked her at Acorn were actually right there in the church that where her brother was preaching. Excuse me. And so him deciding or her deciding, no, him deciding that maybe she's blowing things out of proportion. There's no way they do good Christian work. Um, so he decides to kind of dismiss her, separates from her. He goes to preach in another state, and he does leave her some money and says that he'll ask around about her daughter. And so nothing really comes of it. So as she's looking for her daughter all over the country, as well as building up, um, her religion, she, they get pretty prosperous. They become the richest, I guess, religion. They have a bunch of houses where they teach people how to read, write, cook, clean, grow, how to fight. I mean, towards and at the end there, she, you know, she kind of accomplishes her goal. Her idea of Earthseed is that every single human being on Earth that ever was, is, or will be, that their main goal is to become one with nature. They have the thing at Acorn before it was attacked, where she would, they would cremate bodies or bury the bodies beneath trees so that their life force could still be utilized in nature. But the ultimate goal is to, get spaceships and literally fly and populate the universe as well as the Earth. So that's why she calls it Earthseed. And it's really cool how she gets to that point. Now, going back to her daughter, her long lost daughter, who is kidnapped from her mother and her father and placed into what was deemed a good Christian home to kind of wash out all of her, her, oh man, that was a good word for it. Just get rid of all of her, that Earthseed teachings, her hedonist ways. So she's in this Christian home, and she's an empath as well, I believe. But what ends up happening to her is the home where she's fostered in, she gets abused. So she makes a plan to just get out of there as fast as possible, and so she gets to a certain age and does. She understands that there's a big preacher, which is Marcus, which she doesn't know is her uncle, but that's her uncle, and so she ends up being taken in by Marcus, which is Lauren's brother, of course, and secretly raised by Marcus, protected by Marcus. So this is the first time Marcus felt, real love. His first time, I mean, after being enslaved and free. Um, First time he's loved. First time the daughter feels love outside of her parents at Acorn, and so they just become attached to each other. And she lives a fairly decent life. She gets a really good job. She's brilliant like her mother and very forward thinking, and she ends up I don't know, she ends up being curious about this crazy lady who's created her own religion and has raised all this money, capital, political power, and everything. And so that's what sort of draws her to what she'll soon find out is her mother. Now, when this happens, this is when Lauren figures out that her brother, Marcus, has secretly raised and kept her daughter from her. So she never forgives him for that. And that causes some issues between her daughter because without her being able to forgive Marcus for what he did, she just held all this hatred towards him, which to her daughter looks like, I mean, this is the only person I've ever known. It's the only blood relative I've ever known. He's taken care of me for most of my life. So they're not able to really click in that matter. So the book ends with Lauren watching the spaceships actually, her longtime dream culminating to reality, and she watches the first spaceships leave for their journey. Um, I mean, it's really special, really interesting. And so while she's watching it, she's reflecting back on Marcus, who's an older man. She's reflecting on her daughter, who has decided to stay with Marcus in the church and to take care of her uncle because that's who she most identifies with at this point of her life. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and play the first clip that I thought was interesting. Here we go.
We will live and we will serve life. We will shape God and God will shape us again, always again, forevermore. Some people whispered that last word, echoed it. Zara, we will.
So that's part of her teachings, which she started when she was a child herself, going through a great deal. But I love that ideal of shaping God because we do it whether we realize it or not all day, every day. For some people, there's nothing. For some people, it's just spiritual. It's the universe. For others like me, we believe in a God, not the the bearded man in the cloud city. But I mean, I don't even know how I would even describe God. But the idea that we shape him every day because we're all trying our best. I think maybe not our best, but we're doing as well as we can at the moment. Let's check this next clip out.
Will be scattered, gathered, molded, probed. We will live and we will serve life. We will shape God and God will shape us again, always again, forevermore. Some people whispered that last word, echoed it. Zara quoted in a voice almost too soft to be heard. God is change, and in the end, God prevails.
All right,
But I
so
think we
that's the next part of that. So at that point, This is her telling her group that, hey, ladies, we're gonna get raped, but we need to pay attention to every single detail around us. How the belts work, what are the guard switching, era. So she's literally, they're all enslaved, and she's trying to tell the women, brace yourselves. You're going to be raped, but what we need to do is pay attention to everything while the rape is happening. I mean, that's incredible by itself. Like, she's enslaved, she's lost her husband, her child has been kidnapped by this group, and she knows exactly how they operate. So she just is being the leader. I mean, it sounds cold, but man, sometimes that's what you need, a cold, calculating leader. And that's what she was in that moment. And because of that, they're able to find a way to escape. And eventually she finds her daughter. Let's check this next clip out.
I also intend to absorb some of the storekeeper, restaurant, or hotel clients that we'll have. Or I want us to open our own stores, restaurants, and hotels. I definitely want to begin gathering houses that are also schools in Eureka, Arcata, and some of the larger nearby towns. I want us to grow into the cities and towns in this natural, self-supporting way. I don't know whether we can do all this, but I think we have to try. I think this is what a real beginning for Earthseed looks like.
Again, this is her trying to convince Ben Cole that, Ben Cole is an older guy. The reason he even met Lawrence because his town was burnt. He was a doctor. He was comfortable, and he was forced through adversity to move away from that. And so he's telling her like, "Hey, that happened there for your home, for my home. Let's not be so comfortable here. Let's keep it moving." And she's trying to say, convince him otherwise. We can protect ourselves. We can stay here. We can we can make this work. Excuse me. So yeah, so that's what that clip is. We're gonna go a little bit further down the line here.
Wait and do what you have to stay alive. A teacher was coming toward us. Either he had spotted us whispering as we worked, or he was just checking. I let Harry move past me. Our few moments of talk were over. Chapter 13.
So this is the moment where they're being enslaved, and teachers is what they call themselves. This Christian based group, they call themselves teachers, and they they use the word teachers because they will teach you through pain and pleasure, how to, quote unquote, cleanse yourselves by doing exactly what they're saying, which is ends up being some pretty horrendous things. We're talking rape, we're talking murder. I mean, it's pretty bad. Let's go to the next clip.
In that place, Mark, with those people. Maybe he was even there at the time of my first visit. We might have seen each other and not known. What would he have done, I wonder, if he had recognized me?
So again, that's her brother Marcus. Lauren and her brother Marcus were raised by their strict Baptist father, and Lauren decides that I'm gonna fake it till I make it, and then once I leave from under my father, I'm going to begin my own religion, which is Earthseed. And she does this, um, all to build. She gets away from home. She builds a community. The community is enslaved, and then they break free from it. And so now she sees her brother, who is teaching at the same, sort of church, um, the same church that she sees the guards at the church who are enslaving and killing and raping at her parish. So she's trying to work up the nerve to talk to Mark. Let's go a couple more here.
I could have finished it much more quickly, but working on it, adding detail, gave me a chance to talk about Earthseed without seeming to proselytize. I quoted verses as though quoting any poetry to her until one verse caught her interest. That she could not conceal from me. To her credit, it was this verse: to shape God with wisdom and forethought, to benefit your world, your people, your life. Consider consequences, minimize harm, ask questions, seek answers, learn, teach. She had once been a teacher in a public school in San Francisco. The school had closed 15 years after she began teaching. That was during the early 20s, when so many public school systems around the country gave up the ghost and closed their doors. Even the pretense of having an educated populace was ending. Politics
So this is her talking about one of the ladies she comes across as she's looking for her daughter and trying to spread very carefully her religion. Um, I think this is interesting because you hear her just kind of subtly slipping verses out, and then when she gets somebody with one of the verses, that's when she really tries to drive the selling point home of her new religion outside of Christianity. And that tells you a little bit about the times that they're in. Now, this is set in the future, even though this was written in late '90s. This is set in the future. There's some cataclysmic event that happens. It causes people to kind of be more tribalized. You have a Christian in name president coming saying that he's going to make America great again. I kid you not, that's in there. He's going to make America great again by getting rid of all the sinners and the others being LGBTQ, the others being black and brown, poor, just anybody, the undesirables, so to speak. So during this time, she talks about in early on 2020s is when people just stop really trying to educate their children. So this is part of that cataclysmic, event that happens that they stop educating, they stop listening to what they believe are facts and kind of making up their own thing as they go along. And some people become more powerful during this time, and of course, some people become weaker. I'm going to go to this final clip here. Here we go.
learns fast, complains endlessly, and does an excellent job, however long it takes. Most of the time, she enjoys herself. The complaining is just one of her quirks. Then Joel and Irma invited us to eat with them at their table. I had done a quick sketch of Irma to catch her attention and added a verse that was intended to reach her through environmental interests that I had heard her express. There is nothing alien about nature. Nature is all that exists. It's the earth and all that's on it. It's the universe and all that's in it. It's God, never at rest. It's you, me, us, them, struggling upstream or drifting down. Also,
All right. So that's her furthering her religion. She's getting ready. She's at a point where she's going to actually start launching these spaceships. And again, one of the sadder part. Well, first of all, two things I'm really frustrated with this book by. One, we don't ever find out exactly what happens to her father. He goes missing, and they're never able to recover a body. Unlike one of her older brothers, who left on his own and was beaten up pretty badly, tortured, burnt, cut, and they were at least able to identify who he was. But nothing really came of that. The other thing is, she doesn't get on the ship. It's like William Shatner this week or the past week or so going into space. You kind of want that moment for Lauren. We don't get it, which is fine. But yeah, let's go to this quote real quick.
take root among the stars. Religions are no more perfect than any other human institutions, but Earthseed will fulfill its essential purpose. It will force us to become more than we might ever become without it. And when it's successful, it will offer us a kind of species life insurance. I wish I could live to see that success. I wish I could be one of those who go out to take root among the stars. I can only hope that my Larkin will go, or perhaps some of her children, or even Mark's children. Whatever happens, as long as I'm alive, I won't stop working, preaching, aiming people toward the destiny. I've always known that sharing Earthseed was my only true purpose. Epilogue.
So that's one of the sadder moments of the book, where she does all this work to find her daughter. She finds her daughter only to realize she's been portrayed by her brother Marcus. Of course, Larkin is her daughter. She's been portrayed by her brother, who secretly raises the daughter. Um, and it's really one of those heartbreaking things of, man, how many times do we in our lives really try to, we have a goal. Sometimes that goal doesn't happen the way we planned on it. So we, get to work at recreating something else. And in doing that, especially because of the first failure or the previous failures, you kind of get tunnel vision. I think here, a wonderful heroine, as brilliant as she is, she has a huge blind spot for her religion. She truly believes that her religion is supposed to get on spaceships and not only populate the Earth, but populate the universe. And in doing so, she loses track of her daughter for what she deems is something probably more important, because she does say it's more important than herself or anybody else, any one person. But that idea that she was at the end unable to forgive her brother and salvage some sort of relationship with her daughter, you know, and it's a sad ending, but it's kind of a happy ending, because all this hard work that she put in, all the sacrifice, all that she been, all that she went through, it ends up being this thing where it culminates at the end and is fruitful. So thank you guys so much for joining me in this. Next week's book, or no, sorry, we do this once a month. So what we're trying to do, usually I have Anson here with me, but what we're trying to do is we're picking a book, reading for a month, and then at the end of each month we'll discuss it. Now there's a link where people can join us. Sorry for you Spotify users. Hopefully, this was okay, audio wise, but I know it's tough not having a visual to go along with it. So I'm gonna look up and confirm our next book. Let's see. Bear with me. I have it here. So we're going to be doing. I feel like I need Dean here. Oh, while I'm looking for this, again we have. So we do the book club once a month, every Saturday night, 5 p.m. Central Time. We do Let's Talk with Gales and Dean. Be in prayer for his daughter. She's in the hospital right now. I don't know if he's going to join me tonight or not. Also, Saturday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Tony, Richard, myself, Chulo Rich. We do Urban Academia. So just join in the conversation. Uh, we'd be glad to have you here. So the next book we're gonna do is The Untethered Soul, and I'm gonna do a lot better about letting you guys know, kind of keeping you up to date on whether or not we are on schedule for these releases. I think with the holidays coming up, we'll have to pre-record some things, but I'll still post it live, and you'll be able to interact with each other and Of course, Anson and I try to check in as well. So the next month, we are going to be reading Untethered Soul. Let's see. Let's see. Trying to get the correct version here. I guess it don't matter. Look, I usually try to find audiobooks or the books with the words for free on YouTube. There are a lot of great sites out there you can check out as well. But we are going to be reading for the next month The Untethered Soul. Who is this by? By Michael Allen Singer, The Journey Beyond Yourself. So we'll read that for the month. I'll check in with y'all at Frapping Books. Please, spread the word on that. And let's read together so we can talk together. But I really appreciate everyone for joining me, and I will see you next month.